I didn't make this up. These are not my words, right? I'm talking to people who are on the inside, some who are on active duty, some who are retired, and everyone, literally, from critical infrastructure in Department of Homeland Security to the intelligence agencies, they know there's no other. It's there. This is a cyber attack on a critical infrastructure corridor for the United States.
The ship's lights can be seen being turned on and off as the ship passes by the support column. Suddenly, the lights are turned back on as the ship turns toward the support column and slams into it. There are also reports that a fire began on the ship, which caused the tugboats to be released 17 minutes before impact with the Francis Scott Key Bridge. The Biden administration's response was, of course, par for the course.
Everything so far indicates that this was a terrible accident. At this time, we have no other indication, no other reason to believe there's any intentional act here. It's my intention that the federal government will pay for the entire cost of reconstructing that bridge.
Red flag. It is blatantly obvious that taxpayers will foot the bill so that insurance companies don't investigate.
This was a ship that appears to be at fault. Is there any reason to believe that the company behind the ship should be held responsible? And then also you mentioned...
That could be, but we're not going to wait for that to happen. We're going to pay for it to get the bridge rebuilt and opened.
The Gateway Pundit reported that an unclassified cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency report said the container ship Dolly lost propulsion as it was leaving port and warned Maryland officials of a possible collision.
This is a brilliant, well-planned strategic attack on one of the most important supply chains in the United States of America. And when I talk about hazardous materials, what are we talking about here? This is refined fuels, right? This is propane gas. This is diesel. This is fuel. This is flammable materials. This is oversized loads, nitrogen, chemicals. Everything that you need for your economy to move has literally just been shut down for 4 to 5 years. They knew that they had to target one of two main anchor points on that bridge. There are two load-bearing pylons that any structural engineer can identify that are on the end of each side of the bridge. These are the ones that are thicker and stronger than anything else on that bridge. They created that bridge because hazardous materials, for example, oversized loads, they don't fit in the tunnel system. Yep. And there's other loads that are so dangerous that they require a permit. It takes time to get a permit. It costs money to get a permit. It requires an escort. You can only move this stuff at night, which automatically impacts the amount of traffic that you can use. The tunnel is going to be overloaded. This is what you call death by 1,000 cuts. It is an absolutely catastrophic attack on critical infrastructure, and you cannot see it because a cyber attack is unseen. Just like the attack on 2020 on the voting machines that you cannot see.
Quote, for every $100 that goes into the city, $12 comes from shipping, end quote. It is now the troubled city of Baltimore that will be crippled as well.
Everyone, this is a tragedy. I pray for our first responders and thank them.
Council members voted tonight to cut $22 million from the Baltimore Police Department.
The infrastructure of the United States has been under attack since Biden took office, and now a key domestic supply chain has been eliminated within its interior.
History is truly at a turning point. We do not yet know the full extent and the systemic and structural changes which will happen. However, we do know that global energy systems, food systems, and supply chains will be deeply affected. In times of crisis, the role of governments is more important and more relevant than ever.
But I think it's more likely we're going to end up, if we end up in a war, a real shooting war with a major power, it's going to be as a consequence of a cyber breach of great consequence. And it's increasing exponentially, the capabilities. When I was with Mr. Putin, who has a real problem, he's sitting on top of an economy that has nuclear weapons and oil wells and nothing else. Nothing else. Their economy is what, the 8th smallest in the world now? Largest in the world? He knows he's in real trouble, which makes him even more dangerous in my view.
So essentially what this public-private partnership that the WEF is pushing for is for every person's access to the internet to be tied to a digital ID or a government-issued ID, but presumably a digital ID, just because of where government-issued ID programs are all going essentially around the world. People aren't necessarily going to consent to that unless they are made to believe that anonymity and privacy online are dangerous. So how exactly can you convince people that that needs to happen? Well, you have some sort of event where anonymous hackers do something online that causes major disruption globally, and then the consent can be manufactured through fear and panic, as is often done, that anonymity and privacy needs to be eliminated, that we need to know exactly who is doing what online to prevent a calamity of that scale from ever happening again. And this is the exact solution that these guys have been cooking for a very long time.
Hackers affiliated with China's People's Liberation Army have infiltrated critical services here in the U.S.
It was actually a very shocking result to us that there's a very few number of substations you need to take out in the entire United States to knock out the entire grid.
Knock out the entire grid?
That's correct.
How many would it take to knock out, putting the entire country in a blackout?
Less than 20.
That report was from 2013, and it actually found the number was even lower, 9. Taking out just 9 critical substations could black out the whole country.
This was a huge cyber attack in the panicked early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, targeting a $1.8 trillion government agency. The truth of it has never been reported.
This is the Department of Health and Human Services, and on March 16, 2020, they were going to full remote work. Network operators had to adjust all their firewall and security settings to allow hundreds of thousands of new unknown connections into their network, so they had to scale down their security all at the same time.
And that's when the attack struck.
China's preparing for war with the United States. The strategy here is that they want to be able to invade Taiwan. They're worried that the United States will project military power from bases in Hawaii and the continental United States to Asia to defend Taiwan. And so what China's trying to do is to do these cyber intrusions, lay in wait, and at the right moment attack ports, attack water supply, attack energy supplies to prevent the United States from projecting military power forward.
We have a nuclear power plant offline because a water pump froze. We have coal plants offline because equipment froze or the coal piles froze. We have some solar panels covered in snow. We have some wind turbines coated in ice.
One woman in Texas filed a class action lawsuit against Texas power provider Griddy Energy after she was charged $9,500 for electricity during the week of the storm.
In the wake of the attacks in Israel, border officials say they've seen a growing number of people on the FBI watch list trying to enter the country through the southern border.
The figures show that in fiscal year 2023, CBP arrested a total of 154 non-citizens on the government's screening watch list. 151 of those individuals were arrested along the southern border. The numbers are up from 98 in the last fiscal year. The numbers represent a small fraction of all migrants processed at ports of entry.
We are right now in a very dangerous moment in the world. A very unstable situation.
News Nation has learned asylum seekers in New York City are going door to door looking for help on Staten Island.
The psyop behind the projection, pushing America into fragmentation, is deliberate and financially backed by billionaires and managed by our own intelligence agencies.
Meet Serge Varley, a recruiter at BlackRock.
All of these financial institutions, they buy politicians. You can take this big ton of money, and then you can start to buy people. Let me tell you, it's not who's the president. It's who's controlling the wallet. So it's
and who's that?
The hedge funds, BlackRock, the banks. These guys run the
thing was an op, Mr. Durham. This wasn't like a bumbling, fumbling FBI that couldn't get FISA straight. They ran an op. So who put Mifsud in play? You don't know, do you?
I do not know that. I can't give you the
answer. For years, you had years to find out the answer to what Mr. Jordan said was the seminal question, and you don't have it.
The media fuels the projection.
If you are watching Fox News, I've said this before, if you're watching Fox News or following some right-wing radio host or getting Facebook feeds within that bubble, your reality is different than if you read the New York Times or watch your program. Not just during election time. But just this constant demonization of the other side, making people fearful of each other.
Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
Until, in the words of Sun Tzu, one need not destroy one's enemy, one need only destroy his willingness to engage.
So